Imagine this, my friends. You gave them your time, your affection, your loyalty. You poured your heart like water into dry ground, thinking it would grow into something beautiful. But instead of recognizing the gold they were holding, they treated it like dust, slipping through their fingers. They thought you would always be there, waiting for them, hoping for them, trying for them. They thought your presence was permanent, like a light they could switch on and off whenever they pleased. So when they rejected you, dismissed you, or even betrayed you, they believed that was the end of your story. They thought you would fade quietly, broken and begging. But what they didn't expect, folks, is that silence would become your greatest weapon. You see, silence is not weakness. Silence is control. It is the calm in the storm, the stillness of a mountain that no wind can move. The moment you stopped reaching out, the moment you stopped chasing, the entire story flipped. This is not about games. This is not about revenge. This is about the deepest laws of human nature, because nothing haunts a person more than the silence of someone they once underestimated. They can argue with your words, they can dismiss your feelings, they can laugh at your tears, but they cannot escape the echo of your absence. Think of it like this: when a fire burns out, people notice the cold. When a song stops playing, people notice the silence. When a rare jewel is lost, people finally realize its value. That is what your silence does. It exposes the emptiness they created. It forces them to feel the space you once filled, and that space grows heavier by the day. At first, they think you'll break, that you'll come running back. But when you don't, when you stay calm, when you stay grounded, the silence becomes unbearable for them. The same silence that once felt like your defeat now becomes their mirror, reflecting every mistake they made, every choice that cost them you. My friends, this is stoicism in motion. You do not need to scream to be heard. You do not need to beg to be noticed. You stand still, like the ocean refusing to explain its waves, like the sun refusing to prove its light. In silence, you are more powerful than in words, and that is when they begin to regret. They start to replay every moment, every conversation, every time they looked at you and failed to see your worth. Their mind becomes their punishment. Their thoughts turn into chains, and they realize too late, the one who stayed silent is the one who always had the power. So, let this sink in, folks. The silence you carry is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is strength. It is proof that you are not bound by their rejection, their betrayal, their blindness. You are free. You are calm. You are untouchable. And when you reach that state, something amazing happens. The same people who turned their back will look over their shoulder again. They will miss what they once dismissed. They will crave what they once rejected. And they will regret losing you when they finally understand the silence that once fooled them was the loudest truth of all. And here's where I want you to pause, my friends. Don't just let these words float past you like background noise. Let them sink into your chest. This silence you're holding, this strength you've discovered, it's not just a phase. It's proof that you are bigger than the storm they dragged you into. You didn't collapse, you didn't beg, you didn't break. You stood firm. That's power, that's control. And now I want you to claim it. I want you to seal it inside yourself. Type it in the comments right now. I am unshaken. Don't whisper it, declare it. Because every time you put those words into the world, you're reminding yourself and everyone watching that you are not moved by rejection, betrayal, or silence. You are the mountain, not the pebble. You are the ocean, not the puddle. Let those 3 words be your shield. Let them be your battle cry. And if this truth hit you, if it woke something inside you, don't just sit back. Press that like button, subscribe, stay with me, because we're not finished. We're building something here, a space where your strength can't be ignored, a place where their regret becomes your victory. The story doesn't end with silence. The story begins with you. Number 1. Turn the silence into a stage. At first, your silence feels like nothing, my friends. They roll their eyes, they laugh it off, they tell themselves, oh, they'll be back. They always come back. In their mind, your quiet is temporary, just another pause before the next time you reach out. They think it's a mood, a little sulk, the kind of silence that cracks after a few days. They underestimate it, just like they underestimated you. But as those hours turn into days, and those days turn into weeks, that silence starts to stretch. It begins to breathe on its own, like a shadow that grows longer with the setting sun. And suddenly, what felt like nothing begins to feel like everything. Think about walking into a theater, expecting to hear applause, expecting the crowd to cheer, expecting the lights to rise on a performer who makes the show worth watching. But instead, you step onto the stage, and there's nothing. No claps, no laughter, no whispers, only silence. Empty seats, echoes bouncing off walls that once held sound. That silence does not feel calm, it feels heavy. It presses on the chest, it rattles the mind. That's what your absence becomes to them. You were the show. You were the reason their days had energy, the reason their nights weren't so hollow. And without you, the stage is cold, and their pride is the first to crack under the weight of that empty theater. Carl Jung once said, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." Your silence is that secret order. On the surface, it looks like nothing, like disorder, like retreat. But in reality, it is the cosmos setting itself right. It is balance returning. You are showing them, without saying a word, that you were the pulse that gave their story rhythm. Now they're left with their own emptiness, and it is louder than any argument you could have spoken. But let's be honest, my friends, silence is not easy to hold. The mind will play tricks on you. Questions will creep in during the night. What if they don't notice? What if they don't care? What if my silence doesn't hurt them at all? These thoughts come like thieves, trying to steal the strength you've built. And in those moments, you'll feel the pull to break, to reach out, to send just one text, just to remind them you exist. That is the test. That is the fire you must walk through. Because silence is only powerful when you let it stand unbroken. Remember, they expect you to break. They expect the message, the call, the apology. They're waiting for you to stumble back onto that stage and fill the silence for them. That's the script they've written in their mind. But Stoicism teaches us this. True control is not about moving others, it's about mastering yourself. The silence is not for them, it is for you. It is the proving ground where you learn that your worth does not depend on their attention, their validation, their presence. It is your declaration to the universe that you can stand on your own. Think of the silence like a seed buried in the soil. At first, nothing seems to happen. It's dark, it's quiet, it looks dead. But beneath that stillness, life is forming. Roots are reaching down, strength is building up. And then, one day, the seed breaks open and growth bursts through the earth. That is your silence. It may feel invisible in the moment, but it is changing you. It is forcing them to see you differently. It is forcing them to sit in their own emptiness and realize how much of the show you were carrying all along. And here's the truth, folks. Your silence grows heavier with every passing day. What once felt like relief to them, your absence, your quiet, becomes pressure, becomes weight, becomes a question they can't shake. Why aren't you reaching out? Why aren't you chasing me? Did they really let me go? That is where their pride begins to crumble. They wanted control, but silence takes it away from them. Silence forces them to see that you are not desperate, you're not waiting, you are not theirs to command. You have become untouchable. Now, some of you are sitting here thinking, but what if they never come back? What if they forget me? Let me tell you something. People don't forget what once gave them life. They don't forget the fire that warmed them, the laughter that lifted them, the presence that steadied them. They can bury it, they can distract themselves, they can run to others, but when the silence settles in, and it always does, your absence becomes the loudest voice in their mind. And that voice will whisper to them again and again, you lost something rare, you lost something real, you lost someone who won't come back so easily this time. And that's why, my friends, turning your silence into a stage is not about pretending, it's about transforming. It's about shifting the spotlight back onto them, making them face themselves without you holding up the mirror. It is about showing them, without words, that you were not just a background character, you were the entire act. And now the curtain has fallen, and they are left standing on a stage that feels colder, emptier, darker than they ever expected. So I ask you, will you break or will you hold? Will you step back into the role they always assumed you'd play, or will you let the silence speak for you? This is the wisdom of Stoicism, that the most powerful move is often the one that looks like doing nothing. This is the depth of Jung's teaching, that within the void, the unconscious speaks truths louder than any voice. Your silence is not just absence, it is presence in its purest, most undeniable form. Stay calm, my friends. Stay disciplined. Stay the master of yourself. And as you hold that silence, know this: you are not losing, they are. You are not forgotten, they are haunted. You are not weakened, they are broken. Write it in the comments right now. Silence is power. Don't just type it. Own it, breathe it, carry it into every choice you make. And if this truth lit a fire inside you today, press that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because we are only at the beginning of this journey, and your silence is about to speak louder than ever. Number 2. Shift your focus, not your heart. Here's where the real shift happens, my friends. This is the turning point most people miss, because the silence alone is not enough. You must decide what you will do with it. In the beginning, it's tempting to sit in that quiet, waiting, watching, hoping they'll come knocking again. But that's not real strength. That's not stoicism. The power of silence multiplies when you redirect it, when you take the energy you once poured into chasing them, worrying about them, begging for scraps of attention, and you turn it inward. Instead of chasing them, you begin chasing your own life. Think about it. All that effort you gave, all the nights you stayed awake replaying conversations, all the plans you made around them, that was energy. That was your life force being poured into someone who couldn't see its value. Now, you take that same fire and pour it into yourself. Your health, your body, your goals, your work, your hobbies, your vision for the future. You don't fake indifference, because indifference is still about them. You create genuine progress. You wake up and you become the kind of person that even you didn't see coming. At first, it feels strange. You'll hear the voice in your head whispering, "Why bother? What if this doesn't matter? What if they don't notice?" But slowly, as you keep moving forward, as you take one step, then another, something inside you begins to change. The silence that once felt heavy now feels like freedom. The space that once felt like loss becomes a canvas where you paint a new picture of yourself. And that, my friends, unsettles them more than any text you could ever send. Because here's the truth, they wanted you to collapse without them. They wanted your silence to be proof of weakness, a sign that you couldn't go on without their attention. They expected to look back and find you broken, stuck, waiting. But instead, they hear whispers from mutual friends. Did you see how they've been glowing lately? Did you notice how they're moving differently? They catch a glimpse of your progress, maybe online, maybe in person, maybe through the grapevine, and suddenly their certainty begins to crack. The silence has transformed into evidence, living proof that their absence did not destroy you, it built you. And psychologically, this cuts deep. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." By shifting your focus inward, you awaken. You stop living for their validation and start living for your own. This is why it unsettles them, because they realize the story has flipped. They are no longer the center of your attention. They are no longer the one pulling the strings. And the more you grow, the smaller they feel. Think of it like a tree, my friends. When a storm rips through, weak branches snap. But the strong tree, the one with deep roots, doesn't just survive. It grows even deeper, even stronger. That's what you're doing now. You are rooting yourself in your own life. You're becoming unshakable, and your growth will be impossible for them to ignore. But let's address the question that might be in your mind right now. What if they don't see it? What if they never notice my growth? Let me tell you something. People always notice, even if they pretend not to, even if they stay silent themselves. Human beings are wired to compare, to wonder, to check. And when they see you glowing, when they see you rising, they will feel that regret like a stone in their chest. Because nothing unsettles the human ego more than watching someone they dismissed turn into someone they can't ignore. So here is your task: redirect. Don't let your silence just sit in the air. Turn it into fuel. Every workout, every page you write, every dollar you earn, every new skill you learn becomes evidence. You don't even need to announce it. The energy speaks for itself. And while they sit in their own noise, you will be building something they can never touch: yourself. Stay focused, stay hungry, stay rising. Write it in the comments. I choose growth. Say it, believe it, carry it. Because when you shift your focus inward, you don't just move on, you ascend. And that ascent, my friends, is the very thing that will make them regret ever letting you go. If this truth stirred something inside you, press the like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because your rise has only just begun. Number 3. The mirror effect. Silence is a mirror, my friends. It does something words never can. It throws a person back into themselves. When you stop reaching out, when you stop explaining, when you stop softening the blow of their choices, they are left with no distraction, no comfort, no noise to drown out the truth. And here's the thing about the human mind. It doesn't like silence. The brain is a storyteller. It needs to fill gaps. It needs to explain what it cannot understand. So, in the absence of your words, in the emptiness of your voice, their own mind becomes the loudest sound in the room. At first, they brush it off. They convince themselves that ignoring you, rejecting you, betraying you, it was the right move. They tell themselves, "I'll find better," or "they'll come crawling back." But the longer your silence stretches, the more that mirror sharpens. Suddenly, they begin to see their own reflection in ways they never wanted to. They replay the moments, the times they brushed you aside, the texts they left unanswered, the conversations where they were careless with their words. Without you to soothe them, those memories echo louder. Without you to chase, their pride has nothing to stand on. It's psychology, folks. Regret doesn't grow in the moment of action. It grows in the silence that follows. Studies show that the human mind can't stand a vacuum. It fills the unknown with questions, with stories, with what-ifs. And your silence is the perfect vacuum. They thought they could just move on, but instead their brain begins to whisper, "What if I was wrong about you? What if I misjudged? What if I threw away the best thing I ever had?" Those whispers become louder than any argument, louder than any defense they built for themselves. Think of it like standing in front of a mirror after years of avoiding it. You can lie to others, you can lie to yourself, but the mirror doesn't lie. And your silence is that mirror. It shows them the cost of their choices, whether they want to see it or not. They start to notice the cracks in their own story. They told themselves you weren't special, but why then do they keep thinking about you? They told themselves you'd always be waiting, but why then have you stayed quiet this long? Every unanswered question is a crack in their pride, and regret seeps in like water through broken glass. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Your silence forces their unconscious to rise. It drags their hidden fears, their hidden guilt, their hidden doubts to the surface. They cannot escape it because the silence won't let them. And that's why, my friends, silence is not weakness. It's reflection. It is the moment when their own mind becomes their punishment. But let's be real, it isn't always easy for you. You'll wonder, what if the mirror never works? What if they never feel regret? What if they move on happily without looking back? Those questions are natural. Yet the truth is this: people always look in the mirror eventually. Maybe it's in the quiet of the night. Maybe it's when they see someone who reminds them of you. Maybe it's when they realize the new person doesn't carry your light. But at some point, silence forces reflection. At some point, they will sit alone with their decisions, and the what-ifs will break them. Your task is not to prove their reflection to them. Your task is to hold the silence steady, like glass. Do not crack it with desperate words. Do not shatter it with pleas. Let them see themselves. Let them wrestle with the consequences. That is where regret grows strongest. That is where they begin to realize losing you wasn't just a choice, it was a mistake. So remember this, my friends, silence is not empty, it is a mirror. It shows them what they tried to hide. It forces them to see what they once ignored. And in that reflection, regret takes root. Stay strong, stay steady, stay silent. And when the mirror does its work, they will see the truth. They lost someone they will never replace. Write it in the comments right now. Silence shows truth. Let it be your affirmation, your anchor, your reminder. And if these words woke something inside you, press that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because the mirror is only the beginning. Number 4. Scarcity psychology. Here's the brutal truth, my friends. People rarely value what they have when it's in constant supply. The human mind is wired to grow numb to what is always present, always accessible, always giving. When your attention, your presence, your affection was offered day after day, they treated it like running water, always there, always available, always flowing. But what happens when the faucet turns off? Suddenly, what they thought was endless becomes precious. That is the power of scarcity psychology. Your silence removes the constant supply. No more texts waiting in their phone. No more calls filling their nights. No more reassurance. No more comfort. No more steady presence they thought they could count on. You cut off the stream, and suddenly they feel the drought. At first, they might not admit it. They might pretend it doesn't matter. They might even distract themselves with others, with noise, with new faces. But in the stillness, in the quiet moments, they feel it, the absence. They feel the weight of what they once overlooked. Think about this. Gold is valuable, not because it's everywhere, but because it's rare. Diamonds are desired, not because they are common, but because they are scarce. Scarcity creates value, and it always has. When you were present every day, they thought of you like air, always there, unnoticed. But the moment you withdrew, they realized how suffocating life feels without you. That is human nature. That is psychology. The rare becomes irresistible, and what they took for granted yesterday becomes the very thing they crave tomorrow. Carl Jung said, "Man cannot stand a meaningless life." And when your presence is gone, they are forced to face the void your absence leaves. The meaning you once added, the light you once brought, the steady warmth you carried. It is no longer there, and suddenly their days feel colder. Scarcity is not just about physical absence. It is about the emotional hole you leave behind. And make no mistake, they feel it. They can distract themselves for a while, but the mind always circles back to what is missing. But here's the challenge, folks. Scarcity only works if you hold it. If you rush back, if you break the silence, if you flood them again with the attention they didn't value, you reset the cycle. The water runs again, and they go back to drinking without gratitude. That's why holding your ground is so powerful. Scarcity teaches them in a way words never could. They didn't listen when you spoke, but they'll hear the silence screaming at them. You might be thinking, what if they don't notice? What if they never realize what they lost? Let me tell you something. People always notice when something rare disappears. Maybe not right away, maybe not tomorrow. But as time stretches on and they compare everyone else to you and nothing feels the same, they begin to understand. The things they once ignored, the way you cared, the way you listened, the way you made life feel lighter, suddenly become priceless in hindsight. That's the curse of the human ego, to dismiss what's present and to crave what's gone. So don't see your silence as weakness. See it as rarity. See it as proof that you are not ordinary, that your presence is not cheap, that your love is not something to be squandered. Let them feel the drought. Let them feel the hunger, because the longer they go without, the stronger their craving becomes. Scarcity psychology is not a trick. It's the natural order of value. And your silence enforces that law better than any words ever could. Stay disciplined, stay rare, stay priceless. Write it in the comments right now. My value is rare. Claim it, believe it, embody it. And if this truth spoke to you, press that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because we're just beginning to uncover the depth of your power. Number 5. Rewriting the story. They told themselves a story when they left, my friends. That's what people always do when pride leads the way. They create a narrative that makes them the hero. They said to themselves, "You'll always be waiting. You'll never move on. You need me more than I need you." That story gave them comfort. It gave them power. It allowed them to believe that walking away was safe, that they could leave you behind and still be the center of your universe. But here's where the silence flips everything. Silence does what no argument, no plea, no words could ever do. It rewrites the story they told themselves. At first, they believed they knew the ending. They thought this was a book where they set the plot, where you'd stay frozen on the same page, waiting for their return. But as the silence stretches, the plot begins to change. They're no longer the main character. They're no longer the star of the show. They're just a side character in a chapter that's already closed. And that, my friends, is a blow to their pride they cannot easily recover from. Think of it like this. Imagine someone walks out of a theater halfway through a film, certain that nothing important will happen after they're gone. But when they sneak back in later, they realize the movie has transformed. The characters have grown, the story has deepened, and the audience is enthralled without them. They thought they left in control, but now they return only to find that the story no longer belongs to them. That is the power of your silence. It shifts the narrative, and it makes them the outsider looking in. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That's what you're doing when you refuse to chase. You're not just waiting, you're becoming. You're stepping into your own life, into your own growth, into your own transformation. And while you may not see it at first, they do. They feel it in their gut. They see it in the way your energy shifts, in the way you carry yourself, in the way the world begins to notice you without them. And suddenly, they're not the lead role anymore. They're the forgotten character, the one who didn't make it to the end. And let's be honest, folks, the human ego hates nothing more than being replaced. Nothing stings like realizing you are no longer the focus of someone's life. That's when regret begins to bleed through. They remember the way you once lit up around them. They remember the way you built your days around their presence. And now they see you shining without them, moving forward, writing new chapters where they have no role. That reversal, that shift in story, is more devastating to them than any words you could have said. But I know the question lingering in your heart. What if they never see it? What if they don't notice my growth? Hear me on this. People always notice, even if they never admit it, even if they pretend to be blind. They can feel when the energy changes. They can sense when the story no longer belongs to them, and deep down, they regret. They may smile on the outside, but on the inside, the realization claws at them. I am no longer the center. I am no longer the main character. I am just a chapter they outgrew. So let the silence do its work. Don't rush to prove the new story to them. Live it. Embody it. Step so fully into your own life that they can't deny the shift, because the most powerful plot twist is not the one you announce. It's the one they witness when they realize they've been written out. Stay calm, stay grounded, stay becoming. Write it in the comments. I am the story. Let that affirmation anchor you today. And if these words opened your eyes, press the like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because the chapters ahead are where your true power begins. Number 6. The ripple of mystery. Silence creates mystery, my friends, and mystery is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. People can live with rejection, they can live with anger, they can even live with confrontation. But what they cannot live with easily is not knowing. The unanswered question is a wound that doesn't heal. It festers, it grows, it itches at the back of the mind when everything else is quiet. And that's exactly what your silence does to them. They were used to your presence being predictable, your attention being guaranteed, your heart being open. You were like a book they thought they had already read cover to cover. But when you stop reaching out, when you stop explaining, when you stop pouring your emotions into them, suddenly the book snaps shut. The story is no longer in their hands. And now they're left flipping through their memory for clues, obsessing over the unanswered chapters. They begin to wonder, why haven't you reached out? Did you finally move on? Is there someone else? Do you even think about them anymore? These questions are not casual thoughts. They are deep scratches on the mind that keep reopening. In the daylight, they may brush them aside, but at night, in the silence of their own room, those questions grow louder. It's like being haunted, not by your presence, but by your absence. The mystery becomes torture. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." You were that reaction in their life. You lit up something inside them that cannot simply be extinguished by distance. So when you step back, when you go silent, that transformation doesn't disappear. It lingers, it ripples, and those ripples keep reminding them of what they lost, of what they pushed away, of what they will never find duplicated in anyone else. And the truth is, human beings are wired to obsess over unfinished stories. If someone closes a door clearly, if they slam it shut with words like, "It's over, I don't want you," the mind has something to hang on to. But when the ending is silence, the mind cannot rest. It starts building stories. It starts filling in the blanks. It starts imagining scenarios, sometimes wild, sometimes painful, but always centered on you. You are no longer speaking, but now you live inside their head, rent-free, because mystery is more powerful than clarity. Let me put it this way. Imagine someone hands you a puzzle missing a few pieces. You could have an entire picture, but your eyes will keep going back to the empty spaces. That's what your silence becomes. The missing pieces they can't stop obsessing over. Every unanswered text, every day without your presence, every new sign of your independence, it all feeds into the mystery. And the more they wonder, the more they regret ever giving you a reason to go silent in the first place. But here's where you must be strong. Mystery only works when you allow the questions to remain unanswered. If you rush back in, if you give them the comfort of closure, you hand back the control. You fill in the puzzle for them and suddenly the obsession dies. This is why Stoicism demands discipline. It is not about playing games. It is about holding steady, knowing that your silence speaks more than your words ever could. And trust me, my friends, they will chase that mystery. They will look for signs, scroll through your life, try to read between the lines. They'll ask mutual friends, they'll replay memories, they'll stalk quietly in the background. Because the silence does not let them rest. It pulls at them, it scratches at them, it burns into them. And the longer it lasts, the stronger the regret grows. So hold steady, let the silence ripple out like water disturbed by a single stone. The waves will reach them no matter how far they try to run. Stay mysterious, stay untouchable, stay rare. And when the questions eat away at them, let that be their punishment for not valuing you when they had the chance. Write it in the comments. I am the mystery. Let those words be your shield, your affirmation, your reminder that silence is not emptiness, it is power. And if this truth struck something deep inside you, press the like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because the story isn't finished yet. The best is still ahead. Number 7, the return of value. Every single day you stay silent, my friends, your value rises in their mind. At first, they may convince themselves otherwise. They tell themselves, I'll find better. They weren't that special. I can replace them. But the human heart and the human brain are not so easily fooled. Psychology tells us something brutal, yet undeniable. We cling to loss far more intensely than we celebrate gain. Winning something new feels good for a moment, But losing something irreplaceable haunts us for years, and your silence makes that loss crystal clear. Think of it like this. Imagine holding a coin in your hand, an ordinary coin you don't think twice about. One day you drop it, careless, thinking you'll find another just like it. But as days pass, you realize it wasn't just any coin. It was rare, unique, something you'll never stumble upon again. Suddenly, the value of what you lost skyrockets in your mind. That's what your silence does to them. When you were always present, always available, they mistook your value for something ordinary. But when you step back, when you vanish into silence, they are forced to see you for what you always were, rare, unmatched, and impossible to replace. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And that's what your silence forces them to do. It makes them face themselves without the comfort of your presence. They see their choices for what they were, reckless, careless, blind. And now, every day they live without you, the realization deepens. The world may offer them distractions, new people, shallow thrills, temporary comfort, but nothing holds the same weight. No one else laughs the way you did. No one else carries the same energy. No one else makes life feel as alive as you did. And this comparison doesn't fade. It grows sharper with time. You see, your silence isn't just distance. It is proof. Proof that you are no longer accessible. Proof that you were not ordinary. Proof that they lost something valuable. And slowly, painfully, they begin to realize losing you wasn't just a choice they made in a careless moment. It was the greatest mistake of their story. Their ego will fight it. Their pride will deny it. But deep down, regret is carving itself into their heart. And let me be clear, folks, this doesn't happen because you begged them to see your worth. It doesn't happen because you explained yourself or tried to convince them. It happens because you didn't, because you chose silence over desperation, because you let the weight of your absence speak for you. That's the essence of Stoicism, strength in restraint, power in control. By refusing to react, you let reality do the talking, and reality always speaks louder than words. Now, maybe you're wondering, what if they never admit it? What if they never say they regret it? And that's where true wisdom comes in. Whether or not they confess it doesn't matter. What matters is that inside their mind, every comparison reminds them of you. Every failed replacement drives home the truth. Every quiet night whispers the same sentence: you lost someone you cannot replace. That's their burden to carry. That's their punishment. So let your silence continue its work. Don't rush. Don't break. Don't cheapen your value by stepping back into their reach too soon. The longer you remain grounded, the higher your value climbs in their mind. And one day, they'll look back and realize what you already know, that you were never ordinary. You were never replaceable, and letting you go was the costliest mistake of their life. Stay rare, stay steady, stay valuable. Write it in the comments. I am priceless. Let those words anchor you today. And if this truth hit home, press that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because your value is still rising and their regret has only just begun. Number 8. The inevitability of their return. Here's the ending they never saw coming, my friends. Regret always circles back. They thought walking away from you would be simple, that replacing you would be easy, that distracting themselves with new faces, new conversations, new pleasures would erase the imprint you left behind. But the truth is, your silence doesn't fade. It grows. It doesn't weaken. It strengthens. It becomes a fortress built around you, protecting your energy, your worth, your peace. And the longer that fortress stands, the more their curiosity, their longing, and their regret chip away at their pride until it finally breaks them down. At first, they fight it. They tell themselves stories. I'm fine, I don't care, I moved on. But deep down, silence doesn't lie. Silence keeps reminding them that you are gone, that you are untouchable, that you're not waiting by the door. The nights get longer, the days feel heavier, and every distraction they chase turns hollow in their hands. They may laugh on the outside, but inside, their mind replays you, the way you spoke, the way you cared, the way you lit up their world without even trying. Silence does not erase you, it magnifies you. Psychology proves it. The mind cannot resist unfinished business. When there's no closure, when there's no explanation, the human brain clings to the mystery, and your silence is the greatest unfinished story of their life. They don't know why you haven't cracked, why you haven't folded, why you haven't come running back like they expected. That unanswered question eats away at them, and eventually it drives them to the very thing they swore they wouldn't do. They reach out. The text comes. The call, the apology, and though their pride may fight it, regret always outweighs ego in the end. Think of it like the tides, my friends. The ocean can pull back, retreat, and leave the shore bare. But no matter how far it pulls away, it always returns. That is human nature. That is the inevitability of regret. They may run from it, they may fight it, they may pretend they've conquered it, but sooner or later it comes back, pulling them toward the very place they once left behind, you. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists," and that is exactly what happens here. The more they resist the thought of you, the more it grows. The harder they try to silence the memory, the louder it becomes. And eventually, resistance gives way to surrender. The fortress of silence you built becomes undeniable proof of your strength. And that strength is magnetic. It pulls them back, not because you begged, not because you fought, but because you stood firm. And here's what you must understand. Their return isn't just about missing you, it's about realizing what they lost. They return because their mind, their heart, their soul cannot escape the truth. Losing you wasn't just a decision. It was a mistake that silence carved into their conscience. And so, step by step, thought by thought, regret leads them back to your door. So hold your silence. Trust the process. Don't doubt the fortress you've built. In the end, silence is not absence. It is presence in its most powerful, undeniable form. And that is why, sooner or later, they will come back. And, my friends, as we bring this journey to a close, remember this truth. Silence is not weakness, it is strength in its purest form. Every moment you remain steady, every day you resist chasing, your value rises and their regret grows heavier. The story always flips, and sooner or later they will see what they lost. So stand tall, stay grounded, and trust the silence you've built. If this message lit a fire inside you, press that like button, share this with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more. Stay with me. Your power is only getting stronger.